Joining me now to talk more about this, NBC's chief international correspondent, Keir Simmons, and retired Admiral James Stavridis, former NATO Supreme Allied Commander. Keir, let me start with you on this one. Talk about the implications of a meeting, a trip like this.
Well, the implications are multiple. First of all, just as you laid out there, it is simply a question of the two countries trying to do a deal. You're right to point out that the last time the two leaders met, President Putin and Kim Jong-un, was back in 2019 in Vladivostok. I was there to witness that with many other reporters. He traveled by armored train, as you say, and I think this is an extension of that relationship, a reheating of that relationship in the sense that, of course, since then we've had the COVID pandemic, and that had an enormous impact on North Korea. But I think what they're doing is trying to negotiate. I suspect that Pyongyang think it has some leverage, given that Russia so much needs munitions, particularly the Russian munitions that North Korea has for its war with Ukraine. And then I think there's also another interesting thing to take away from this, which it just adds to this now really body of evidence that this is becoming an attritional war that is potentially going to last a long time, maybe a very long time, and that Russia as well as Ukraine are just looking for munitions and armaments to enable them to continue to sustain their campaigns in that conflict.
Admiral, there's twofold things going on here, right? There's what the United States is saying and doing about it, and there's the timing of this meeting, which seems somewhat suspect as well. I want to talk first about what the United States is saying about this and why, in fact, they are publicizing it, right? John Kirby, last week, I believe, saying warning publicly, arms negotiations between Russia and North Korea are actively advancing. We know that Russia has obtained weapons previously from Iran, right? Why would John Kirby, for instance, be going public with this, warning us about it?
I think the target is actually Beijing, that Kirby is, I think correctly, the administration is showing the Chinese that we're tracking this. We have a bead on this. We're very aware of it. We're concerned about it. So that's one target. The second is Pyongyang, is to say to the dictator there that, again, we are aware of this. And I think that the value in doing that, Yasmin, is to ensure that our allies and partners and friends see that Russia has options, meaning that we need to stand strong and continue sending the munitions from our side of this divide. Final thought, you mentioned the word attritional. I think Keir did a moment ago quite correctly. It's not only the equipment that Putin is burning through, it's people. So the other metric to watch here is how is he going to make up for the troops on the battlefield? Right. Don't look for North Koreans to show up. He's going to have to go elsewhere for them.
And then talk to me about the timing here, right? We saw the Russian president, obviously, in this vulnerable state after the advance by Yevgeny Prigozhin, who we now know has confirmed to be dead. You talk about the Ukraine offensive, which has not been going as well as the Ukrainians would have liked. They have recently, I believe, just yesterday, replaced their defense minister. Talk about the timing of this meeting, considering what is happening geopolitically.
Yeah, let's think about this as though it were The Godfather. This is the Corleone family reaching out to the Battaglia family for assistance and for weapons systems. It is a moment of Putin demonstrating that he has the ability to move around, and it comes off right after the BRICS meeting, Brazil, Russia, India, South Africa, China, that was held down in South Africa, Yasmin. So this is Putin kind of flexing his international muscle, showing that he has options. As you mentioned, he's also getting more advanced systems, frankly, from the Iranians. He's trying to convince China. That's the main ball for Putin. He's trying to convince China to come in on his side. I think President Xi is too smart to do that.
If we're looking at it like that, Admiral, I got to say then one should be worried about the other one possibly also stabbing them in the back the second they turn around. Are we still, Keir, seeing Vladimir Putin in a vulnerable state? Is this an indication of that at all?
Well, you don't know because, you're into pure Kremlinology, as they would have called it during the Soviet era, and things can come out of nowhere in that world. That being said, though, I do think that what happened with Prigozhin is the reasserting of the Russian bureaucracy, if you like, this enormous network of decades-long relationships that President Putin and the people around him have. And Prigozhin was always in a difficult position when he was taking on, not perhaps Putin, as he claimed, but the people around him, because he was taking on the whole system. I think you've seen the system reassert itself, and in some ways you could argue that President Putin is stronger now as a result of all that. That being said, of course, I could be proven wrong with that tomorrow. I do think, just to go to what Admiral Stavridis was saying, I do think that the other aspect of this, though, is what we're seeing is the Russians and the Chinese, and now you're looking at the North Koreans, trying to create this kind of alternative international sphere. It's notable that both President Xi and President Putin are not going to go to the G20, but President Putin's going to go to China and meet with President Xi at a One Belt, One Road conference there later in the year. You can see the way the foreign policy of the two countries are knitted together by this determination to try to weaken US influence around the world.